Last back. Last bite.
Now her picture got caught on the screenshot. Just saying, it's going to be on Facebook.
Instant fame. Okay. Well, good morning and gute Woche, and wonderful to see all of you. All right. We are going to say a bracha, and then we'll go to the screen share. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
You may want a pencil and paper for today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you may,
Right.
unless you're very good at keeping figures in your head. So, okay, there we go. Here we go. So the parsha is Toldot, and we now go on to this deals basically with Isaac and Rebekah, but as a matter of fact, it turns out that we're going to be dealing mostly with Esau and Jacob. Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. And these are the generations of Isaac, son of Abraham. And when it says ve'ele, it means to continue on. You notice this is verse 19, although the verse numbers and the chapter numbers were actually developed by Christian scholars, but we have adapted them. Yes.
What chapter are we on?
Chapter 25.
25:19. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Just to continue. So the point is that in some senses, this is related to what happened before. And in before, it's talked about the generations of Yishmael, and then sort of ended up with that. And now we get on to our main topic, which of course is Isaac. Avraham holid et Yitzchak. Abraham sired Isaac. And of course, this appears to be a circumlocution. Why the twice saying it here? Why twice? So Rashi is going to deal with that apparent strange circumlocution. Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak. Yaakov, so in other words, the generations of Isaac, Yaakov ve'Esav, ha'omorim beparsha. It's referring to Jacob and Esau, who are going to be discussed in this parsha. Avraham holid et Yitzchak. So the emphasis on the fact that Abraham fathered Isaac. La'achar shekara hakadosh baruch hu shmo Avraham. So this is a lovely little knetch, as you might say, that Rashi pulls out. In other words, the point is that after the Holy One, blessed be He, named Abram Avraham. In other words, it's sort of emphasizing, saying Avraham fathered Isaac, not Abram, but Avraham. Achar kach holidet Yitzchak. It was only after his name was changed that he was able to father Isaac. Davar acher, another interpretation. Al yedei shekatav hakatuv Yitzchak ben Avraham, because Scripture wrote Isaac, son of Abraham, whose kat lomar, it was necessary for him to say, for Scripture to say, Avraham holid et Yitzchak, that Abraham fathered Isaac. Why? Lefi shehayu leitzanei hador, because the scoffers, Sfaria translates it as cynics, good enough, of that generation, Omrim, they would say, Me Avimelech nit Abra Sarah, that Sarah conceived from Avimelech, that Avimelech was the actual father of Isaac. Shaharei, and they argued this way, Shaharei kama shanim sha'atayim Abraham, because here she was with Abraham for a whole bunch of years, v'lo nit Abra mehemenu, and she wasn't able to conceive from him. So that's why they were suspicious that, or suggesting, the mouths were yakking, okay, and they were saying, well, Isaac's father really was Avimelech. Ma asa Kadosh Baruch Hu, what did the Holy One, blessed be He, do? Sar klastar panav shel Yitzchak. He made Isaac's face, Domeh LaAbraham, look like Abraham. Ve'he'idu hakol, and so everyone testified, Abraham holid et Yitzchak, that Abraham was the father of Isaac. Ve'zehu shekatav kan Yitzchak ben Abraham, and that's the point being made here in the passage, saying Isaac, son of Abraham. That's the first little part. Uh, Shahare, that is to say, Eidut Yesh, there is testimony, Abraham Holidet Yitzchak, that Abraham fathered Isaac. So this little part, Yitzchak ben Abraham, and the proof of that is that Abraham fathered Isaac because Isaac looked just like Abraham. So again, I suspect that there's stuff beneath this, as to what's being said here, perhaps on a superficial level, saying to what degree Isaac followed Abraham in terms of his values and his beliefs and his practices and his character, and he was just really was truly the son of Abraham. Here's where we may need a pencil and paper. Vayhi Yitzchak ben Arba'im Shana, Isaac was 40 years old, Bekachto et Rivka bat Betuel ha'arami, when he took Rivka, daughter of Betuel the Aramean, mi Padan Aram, from Padan Aram. Achot Lavan ha'arami, sister of Lavan the Aramean, lo lisha, he took her to himself as a wife. And here goes, and this is the origins of saying how old Rebecca was when she in fact married Isaac. And I also found what I had told you about Datskeni Miba'alei HaTosafot, that's commentary on this, however, that disputes this chronology. Sha'arei Kesheba Abraham Mehar HaMoriah, because when Abraham came back from Mount Moriah, in other words, when he was the Akedah, the time of the Akedah, Nit Baser, he was told Shenolda Rivka, that Rebecca had been born. So that's of course in the text itself, and that happens right after he gets back from Mount Moriah. The Yitzchak Haya ben Lamed Zayin Shana, and Isaac at the time was 37 years old at the time of the Akedah. Shahare bo baperek, because here it's all based on this assumption, right? That at that very moment, Meta Sarah, that Sarah died. Remember, she was. Satan showed her how Abraham was about to slaughter Isaac, and her soul departed. So in other words, it happened at the same time. Umi shenolad Yitzchak, and from the time when Isaac was born, ad ha'akedah, to the time of the Akedah. So how old was Sarah when Isaac was born?
100? No.
She was
No,
90.
80?
Abraham,
80. No, 90.
correct. Abraham was 100 and Sarah was 90.
Right.
Okay. Shemeta, Sarah, Lamed Zayin Shana. Okay, let's make sure. Okay. So from the time when Isaac was born until the time of the Akedah, Shemeta Sarah, when Sarah died, Lamed Zayin Shana, was 37 years. Why? Uvat Tzadik Haita, she was 90 years old, Keshenolad Yitzchak, when Isaac was born. Now we know that what Sarah's age was when she died, from Chayei Sarah, in the very first opening verses there.
Right.
How old was she when she died?
127.
Correct. And a simple arithmetical calculation will give you a difference between 127 and 90 as
37.
So that's how you get the 37.
Right.
And he just refreshes our memory. Uvat kuf kaf zayin keshemeta. She was 127 when she died. Shene'emar, as it says explicitly, Vayu chaye Sarah. That's the life of Sarah was, etc., etc. Harei liyitzchak lamed zayin shanim. So there we go. QED.
Okay.
So keep going. Uvo baperek noldal Rivka. And at that same moment, in other words, when Isaac was 37, Rivka was born. This is the assumption. Himtin
Right.
la'ad shetahe ru'ya levia. So he waited. How old was Isaac when he married Rebecca? The text is going to tell us.
40.
40.
Correct.
Right.
So take 37 from 40 and you have,
3.
you got it. But he waited 3 years, even though, in other words, it wasn't right at the Akedah. He waited until he was 40. Shetahe ru'ya levia, that she should be marriageable.
At 3.
Yeah, in those days. Yeah.
Okay. However you want to understand it,
Yeah.
apparently they felt that a girl was capable of intercourse at 3. I know. I'm not here to.
They're weaned at 2, and after that, whatever.
No.
Rambam does a lot of that too. It's a little gross, but
I agree. To our sensibilities, it is gross. But as I like to point out, I suspect that many of our great-great-grandmothers were married at 12.
Yes, yes. But
I
then-
want to.
Question. I have a
different than
question. Excuse me.
Yes.
Can does it say that they had intercourse at 3, or does it say married?
Okay.
And
Right.
if it's an arranged marriage, then it could be, it happened that it was arranged then.
Well, I'm confused also because the way Safari has it, it's not even clear. She was married at 3. It says, at least on mine, it says at that period Rebecca was born, and he waited until she was fit. Oh, I get it. So because she had just been born, so even if it's saying he waited 3 years, then she would be 3. Okay, but yeah, okay.
But it's more like a wed, like they do in the royals. They
but a
married
marriage-
off each other since from birth.
I would
pretty
think a
much,
marriage would have to be consummated.
Right.
Correct. Okay, so let me answer Lisa's question. Okay, all right. The word bia, that's right there in the text. I'm pointing to it. It refers to intercourse. It literally, interestingly enough, because of you, I assume you know slang. Okay, means coming.
Okay, so is that the commentary? Is that the commentary, or is that the text above that it says intercourse?
No, okay. The text, okay, so hold your horses, okay?
Yeah.
Please hold your horses, because I have not, this is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning of the story.
Right.
Please understand this, okay? That according to, there is a tradition that Rashi is citing, and I know actually that within halacha, a girl is considered, at least back in those days, a girl was considered marriageable at 3 years old and capable of intercourse. But via means intercourse. So he waited until she was fit, capable of intercourse, 3 years, then nas'a, and he married her. So I am just telling you what it says here. Now,
Not in the text above, not in the original text, just in the commentary.
It's just commentary.
So you cannot use the word just when you say commentary, okay? Because we have no other way of understanding this. First of all, the very fact that we have a text, was the fact that the rabbis preserved this text for us. It never would have happened. Wouldn't even be able to see it, okay? But please hold your horses, okay? It is a commentary.
Okay.
And it turns out, okay, so I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to stop this share, and I'm going to go to something else now. Give me a moment.
Ooh.
So give me a second here, and let me make sure I can find this.
Yeah, you can tell I'm having difficulty with this one.
Of course.
Well,
That's so
yeah,
cool.
because
Why wouldn't you? Okay, so let's go here.
Well, and
Although
I want to see a 3-year-old drawing that much water.
Yeah, what all those camels, exactly.
of
Yeah.
course, absolutely. You realize this is why traditionally you only taught this thing to men. You didn't teach it. Okay.
Because they wouldn't ask these questions.
No, well, who's saying?
God, that's
It's-
pathetic.
That's not true. Okay. Let's keep going.
All right.
So this is Dats Genim Mibale Hatasafot. This is what I refer to. Okay. So it says, here we go. I'm just going to give you the English. I'm not going to take the time to do the Hebrew with you. But it says,
Okay.
according to Rashi, the 40-year-old Yitzchak married a 3-year-old Rivka. This is difficult, as we have learned from Sifrei, not because of biological things. That's not the consideration. We learned from the Sifrei, that's a early rabbinic commentary on the book of Numbers and the book of Deuteronomy, that there were 3 people who reached the same age. That is Kahat, Ben Azai, and Rebecca. And the Torah stated that Kahat died at the age of 133. So in other words, obviously, right? Rivka also died at 133. If this were correct, she must have been 11 years older than 3 when she married Yitzchak. In other
I
words,
like that
she was
better.
14 years old, which is when don't ask me how I managed to come across this thing. I mean, it was on the page of the text that I was reading, okay, and I happened to look at it. And you cannot imagine how relieved I was to come across this particular opinion and this particular proof, because having her married at 14 is totally within reasonable age. There is no Sifra in the book of Genesis. This is the translator's editorial comment. But the Midrash Haggadol, which originated in Yemen, also claims that Rivka, apparently explicitly, was 14 years old when she married Yitzchak. And it says this editorial comment. Rashi's calculation goes as follows, right? We did that, so I won't then. Okay, so let me go. Sorry, I will read this.
Yeah.
Rivka was married at 3 years and 20 when she gave birth to Esau and Jacob. Okay, she was 20 because it says they had 20 years before she was able to conceive. It tells you that in the text. It is in the text. Okay. Yaakov was 63 years old when he fled to Padan Aram. It says this, okay, as Rashi explains at the end of this portion, this Torah portion, that's at the end of the Sedra. He then spent 14 years in the academy headed by Aver. This chronology is worked out because you have to be able to explain this. There's some chronological questions that doesn't take into account 14 years. And so this is the tradition. So, okay, so he's there, which means he is now 77, right? The great-grandson of Noah. So there's this tradition that Aver had a yeshiva. So after that, he worked 20 years. So you get now, we said that he was 77, 20 years for his uncle Lavan. That makes him 97, spent 2 years on his return journey home, during which time he was informed by Rivka's nursemaid that his mother had died. That is suggested. So he's now how old? 99, right? I'm doing this in my head, so, bear with me.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. As Rashi explains at the end of Parshat Vayishlach, there is a reference to Jacob's nurse dying in the passage, in the actual scripture, in the actual Torah. And that is a euphemism for Rebecca dying. And the reason why it mentions Jacob's nurse, Jacob, right, is 99 years old and his nurse is around, right? Anyway, that she was the one who informed him. So she had to come and tell her, which, by the way, lends a deep note of tragedy that after Jacob is sent off at the end of this parsha, right? Because Esau wants to kill him, and Rebecca wants him to go back to her family to make sure he doesn't get killed by Esau. Rebecca never sees him again. That's it. Never sees him again. So anyway, connection with the burial of that nursemaid called Devorah and the naming of an oak tree after her. Yeah, that's all directly in the scripture. According to this calculation, Rivka could not have lived to an age older than 123. If you figure this out. This is
Okay.
okay. This is also the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, according to whom Rivka must have been 14 years old when she got married. So Rabbi Yehuda, now we're getting deep into this. This could be either Mishnaic, which is very early, okay, and very authoritative. If you accept that view, Rivka died at the age of 133, which is, of course, let's see. Let's go back. Yep, 130. Calculation works out.
I like this. Can we get a copy of this or a chunk of that?
Yeah,
Somehow?
I mean, I can make a copy and send it off.
Ooh, thank
Okay.
you, because I want to just stick it right in
So here we go.
my Tanakh.
According to this calculation, what we read in Seder Olam, that's another midrash, right? Chapter, which I think deals with chronologies. I've never read it, so just saying, I believe that's what it's about. That Avram was informed about the birth of Rivka while on the way home from the binding of Isaac. Not a problem. She must have been 11 years old already at the time. It was just news. I mean, how quickly did news travel back then?
Mhm.
Right?
Not
So
very
she was born at
fast.
11 no, not very quickly. And frankly, how often they managed to communicate with each other. Jacob
Right.
was, after all, in Padan Aram with Laban for 20 years. I don't believe he ever heard from the family during those 20 years.
We
I have
don't
no
know
reason
anything
to
about
think,
that.
no, we don't know for
Yeah.
sure, but it doesn't sound likely. Okay, so the news got to her late. Okay, but this, okay, so we do going on this, all right? Look at this. This is what bothered Rabbi Moshe Shlomo ben Avraham, known by the acrostic Ansiman, when discussing that a virgin is given 12 months. This is a whole different complicated issue here, all right? Honestly, you can see it goes down here, and this has to do with the fact that, let's see here, in earlier times, a virgin is given 12 months between betrothal and consummation of the marriage. They had a very long in time in between. That was the tradition, okay? The Talmud there derives this from the words in our portion when Rivka's family demanded 12 months delay. Remember back in the previous portion when Eliezer gets there,
Mhm.
they say maybe she can delay for a year or more, something
The
like
mother
that.
and the brother, yeah.
That's right, exactly. Before Rivka going with him. I mean, you can see how deeply you can dive into this stuff, and it gets quite complicated very quickly. If Rivka had been 14 years old, so this is a difficulty actually, she would have been considered an adult. Remember, a girl is a minor up to 12
And a
years
half.
of say, then 12 and a half, she is she's a Nara, and then at 12 and a half, she is a Bogeret, which means an adult. Okay. And her father would not have had the right to tell her what to do unless she still continued to live in his house. The Talmud there gives a girl who's over 12 and a half years old at betrothal only 30 days before becoming wed to her fiance, just as the length of time required before a widow can remarry. Our author leaves the question open, not having heard how to reconcile this data to the satisfaction of all scholars. So that's because up here,
Because you
this,
can't.
this is all this stuff here, okay? Well, there's a little contradiction there, because if
Sure.
she was 14, then why was he saying this? But she was living with him.
Mhm.
She was living in her father's house. So here we go. And it says, see this here at Tzadik Ayin? Tzadik Ayin? It
Mhm.
stands for Tzarich Iyun. This requires further consideration. That's what they're saying. I have not fully resolved this issue, is what the
Good, because we should continue to talk about this issue.
well, we're not going to do that today. I thought this was really cool to share with you, because most people are familiar with the 3-year-old Rebecca when she marries Isaac, But on the other hand, very few people know about
And
this.
also,
I like
why
this
would
better.
Rebecca have to lower the jug from her shoulder if she's only 3 to
She wouldn't have to.
she would have to raise it up to him.
Yeah, or he was lying flat on his back, from prostrate.
Who smelled that?
I have more problems with the fact that she's 3 when Eliezer meets her than being 3 at marriage. I mean, I really do.
Understood.
Well, the
So-
Nara then, right?
Yes, yes.
So
But then,
Nara,
No, at 14, she's going to be Bulgarian. She's
but
going
if
to be.
she were,
Not if
If
she
she were-
hadn't bled yet.
No, correct. No, but at
So-
3, at 3, she'd be a katana. She'd be a minor. She'd be considered a minor.
Right.
and even if she had been 3 when Eliezer met her, her mom, told him that she had to wait. So she wouldn't have been 3. She would have been at least 4.
Well, they didn't. I mean, no, they asked her and they said, what do you want to do? And she said, remember, Eliezer says to them, listen, I've been successful in my mission. My master asked me to do this. I'm not going to, I do not want to wait for 12 months. I mean, basically he says, please let me go. And so they say, well, in that case, let's consult Rebecca. Ha, ha, ha. Thank goodness they did. I mean, it's just the proper thing to do. But certainly at 14, they would have been consulting her.
yeah, but
This little piece here about the
Right.
30 days as opposed to a year, okay? It's just, the more information you have, the more probabilities there are is that there are going to be some contradictions inner contradictions. So it's just, look, I was giving you a taste of this. I think for the most part, this is good news. I'm gonna stop this share and go back to the, let's see, I guess, well, it's 7:56.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I needed that.
Yeah,
But
that
I
was
said,
great.
when everybody was popping off, I said, hold off, just give us a chance here. Because I was aware of this particular piece. Let me find the place.
We need that piece out a lot more. That
Yeah.
needs to come out in the public a lot
Yeah,
more.
it would be helpful. It would be.
Would.
Well, now you can show how smart you are, okay?
Well, it would also, change the whole narrative on how old a woman really.
Of course. But I will tell you though, what Rashi says in terms of a girl being marriageable at 3, at least in Talmudic times, that was apparently appropriate. So
I can
yeah.
see like a royal marriage, like a in
I know.
paper marriage, but not necessarily.
I know, but he's Rashi's very explicit here, and so is the halakha. Okay, I know, but you've got
And
to
he
be,
was a doctor.
okay, hold on a second, please. We all have to be careful not to impose our own values, which are culturally derived, okay, and throw it onto other civilizations and other cultures, and especially at other times, okay? It's a mistake to do that. We just have to be open. It's fair to say, listen, for us, this is not acceptable, okay? I mean, we find it almost disgusting, all right? I'm willing to go that far, but I don't want to say they were being disgusting. That is just not a fair statement.
But going on, which we're
Yeah.
not going to do,
Right.
at a certain age, you don't expect somebody to get pregnant.
That is correct. And in
So
fact,
we don't pray for
she will
God
not-
to do something to help us until the person is able to do it.
Oh, well, there's the old question of procreation or recreation, okay? So,
Well, no, I understand that. But we don't pray for children
no,
later until the person is capable of doing that.
absolutely.
And I assume that's in Judaism, we don't do that.
That there's no question about.
Right.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, I've got 2 minutes left, and I don't know that I'm going to get to the end of this comment. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a mark, if this will allow me to do this. Yeah, that's going to. All right, so tomorrow we'll pick it up there. Very good, and I'm going to stop the share.
Doggy, go on.
Okay. It's been 7:58 for a long time now on my computer for some reason.
It's just a really long minute.
Well, it's now 7:59. All right. If anybody has any other comments, and then I get off of Facebook and thank people. Hope they enjoyed this morning and found it extremely edifying.
I think we could
Hopefully
spend
they
3
stayed
or 4
on.
hours on this.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. Well, I think that for many, because it's my own, I know I'm guilty of it too, is I'll see that somebody's on, I'll click on it, and unless I'm sort of really think, oh, this is interesting, I'm off of it. And I think most people generally, I can see that I got a lot of clicks, but I think it actually tells me engagements. So, they're usually not very many engagements.
Well, they watch them later. There's like 30 some odd in at each one, like on an average, there's a viewing of 30.
I do
Also,
that.
there
I
are
did that last week.
Yeah,
there
but it does.
are mistakes. There are mistakes and there are misperceptions, and
Yes.
you can't take every word as the truth,
Uh-huh.
quote unquote, as we see it, or that it was the truth, and it was handed down and then it was written down. So anyway, I'm struggling with this. This is really quite a story.
So,
Okay, let me say farewell to our Facebook friends, and
this never came on my Facebook feed as a live, from you,
Oh,
from you. or
Sometimes I get it